Hello, everyone. We're live. This is Where Are All the Women? I'm Meghan Murphy. This is Mary Lou Singleton.
Hi, everybody.
I'm gay and retarded, as my shirt shows. These shirts have been selling pretty well. These are like the number one thing that people want for sure. A shirt that says gay and retarded.
You know what's really, really gay and retarded? The time change. I hate the time change.
Ugh, I feel awful for you. And I also feel so dumb because last week I was trying to figure it out, like when we were talking about on the stream, and I got it completely wrong, like and I'm like, I'm never gonna figure it out. I've never been able to master it.
That's awful.
And then of course Mexico doesn't. We just stay on standard time year round, and it's great. The time never changes.
Did you used to do this? Did Mexico used to do this? Yeah.
When I first moved here, there was still, and it was confusing because at some point the time would be different in Mexico City than it was here. Like it would be different in different parts of Mexico, and then everybody else in the world is changing and everybody does it at different times. Like not everybody does daylight savings on the same day that the US and Canada does. Like Australia does it it's so stupid. Like it's so confusing especially if you're trying to schedule, as I always am, interviews and meetings with people from various parts of the world, and then you've scheduled it months ago, and then the day before the time changes, and then you get it wrong. And anyway, I just wish everybody else would follow Mexico's lead. It didn't do anything bad. We just decided not to do it anymore, and now everybody knows what time it is all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why we still do it. Everyone hates it. I don't know anyone who is just so vocally supportive of continuing to change the time. I think there's not consensus of which one people like. And even though I like standard time better than savings time because I'm a morning person, whatever, just pick one and leave it at that, and I'll cope. I'll cope with the dark winter mornings.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if it was up to me, I would stay on daylight.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't, whatever.
Just pick one.
Just choose one, and then we'll do that one, and it's fine. Like, because I'm not awake in the morning, so obviously I'd rather be lighter later. But I don't really care that much. Like, it's not. It doesn't get dark so early that it's disturbing to me. Hey, no barking, please. Sorry, Adelita has become. Look, you're on TV, little baby.
There you are.
It's my little guard dog. I put the link to this shirt in the live chat for anybody watching on YouTube, and it's also down in the show notes if you're wondering. I also I literally just got home, and this jacket had come in the mail that my friend Rianne made for me. I know this doesn't sound up my alley at all. She's doing cat-themed clothes, and as everyone knows, I hate cats. I don't really hate cats. I just like to say that I hate cats.
No, I do hate cats.
But I love animal print, so it's okay. So she made me this like orange leopard print bomber jacket, and it's actually freezing. Oh God, I shouldn't say freezing. That's pathetic. It's been cold at night here. It's not freezing at all.
It's 68 degrees.
I don't even know what that means, but I think it's been getting down to like 17 or 18 Celsius at night. Yeah, it's cool. Weather where it's like I would like to be wearing pants and like maybe a hoodie or maybe a jacket, and I don't really have very many warm clothes, so it's freezing because I'm out and I'm in like a skirt and a tank top, and I'm like, oh my God, it's freezing. Anyway, so now I have a jacket to wear. But if people are into cats, which I assume some of you must be, I want to put a link to her business that she just started because I think it's quite cute. Again, despite my dislike for cats, she's like a very weird, weird in a good way person. So her Instagram is also hilarious too. She started doing like skits as cats, as though she's the cat and they're having conversations as though they were cats. Anyway, it's called Calico, but I'll put it in the notes later and in the live chat. But I'm pretty excited about my new. I'll wear anything leopard print. I've been a huge fan since the 90s, so It's like the thing that never goes out of style somehow. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I think that I feel like there was more housekeeping things that I wanted to do before we started, but maybe I did it all.
I have an herb class coming up. Can I announce
Thank
that?
you for remembering that.
Yeah.
I wanted to remember that, but of course I don't remember anything. So thank you.
I have a Materia Medica class, which means a class that is all about individual herbs, where we will be learning detailed information about over 150 herbs that I use in my practice. And it's called the Herbs of Enchanted Family Medicine. And it will be from June 3rd to September 16th, Tuesday evenings. It'll all be recorded if people can't make the classes individually. And you can sign up on my website, enchantedfamilymedicine.com.
Enchantedfamilymedicine.com. Okay, great. And then when we finish, I'll also put the link to the class in the show notes.
Great.
Mary Lou is like a magical witch, as you all know, and I highly recommend her herb classes. We did a couple workshops here in Sayulita last year that I just loved. I don't think I've done too much with them, but I did collect a bunch of bougainvillea, which are these beautiful pink petals or flowers that grow on trees everywhere in Sayulita. And I dried them and I keep meaning to do things with them, but I haven't yet. But I mean, I find herbal medicine so interesting and fascinating, and especially, you know, for people who want to, you know, not be dependent on drugs and the pharmaceutical industry all the time. Obviously, if you need things like antibiotics, you need things like antibiotics, but there's a lot of things that, like, there's a lot of drugs that just don't even help, you know, like it's like you buy a cough medicine and then it just makes me feel kind of like weird and twitchy and dehydrated. And I'm like, oh, ginger, lemon, whatever would help more. So.
Right. I think that this is a good time. It's always a good time to learn about herbs, and it's good to be self-sufficient in your medicine. And hopefully, I think it's going to be a great class. I'm hoping a lot of people sign up.
Some people missed a little bit of the info. So again, I'll put it in the show notes after the fact, but can you tell us again when it starts and how many courses there are and how much it costs?
Sure. It's a 16-week class. It starts June 3rd and it goes through September 16th. And it's Tuesday evenings from 6 to 8. But honestly, we'll probably go a little later than that if there are questions. And all classes will be recorded and archived for participants. And right now, the cost is $450 for the entire course. After April 15th, it goes up to $750.
Oh, okay. So get it now while you can. Good deal. I posted the link to your Instagram post about the course.
Great.
In the live chat just now. Okay, so today we're very excited to be doing some, as promised, advice. We got a bunch of really good questions via Patreon and Substack. So thank you, everyone who submitted questions. We have a lot, so hopefully we can get through them all. If anybody who's watching now on YouTube didn't get a chance to submit a question and wants to use the super chat, and we'll see if we can get to it. Before we get into the advice stuff, can I just quickly explain what's going on in Canada? Because I'm really frustrated.
Yeah, what the hell is going on in Canada? I thought Trudeau was over, and the guy whose name I can't pronounce,
Poilievre. I know. Even I pronounce it wrong because it's Poilievre. Like that's how I learned French, not Québécois French. But in Canada, it's spelled Poilievre. Like if you were just pronouncing it like it looks like it should be pronounced, that's what you'd say. But in Canada, we're supposed to say Poilievre. Sorry, somebody corrected me about that on my Patreon, and I was like, and I still can't. I keep saying Poilievre. And it took me a long time to figure out how to pronounce his name also, as somebody who technically speaks French, so don't feel bad.
But he was about to become the prime minister, and now it looks like these morons are going to stay in power.
Well, okay, so this is why it's confusing. And a lot of people are confused in America for sure. And even Canadians, all the like NPCs on Instagram and Facebook commenters are very irritating. They're especially like, because I think that there's more progressives on those websites than there are on X, and progressives tend to be very smug and condescending in their responses while also simultaneously not being interested in actually understanding what, I am talking about, for example. So I've gotten like 100 comments from people on Instagram in response to the stuff that I've been posting about all the political stuff that's going on in Canada right now and what happened with the Liberal Party and Mark Carney, which I'll explain in a minute, being like, oh, dum-dum. Either they assume that I'm American because they can't hide their hatred and disdain and disrespect for Americans. So they're like, oh, another stupid American who doesn't understand our electoral system. And I'm like, first of all, I'm Canadian. Second of all, I understand what's going on. It doesn't mean that it's good. Right. Like, I understand what's happened here. And yes, you're right. It's legal, but it doesn't mean that it's democratic. And I'm like, I've been voting in this country since I was 18 years old. Like, over 2 decades, I've been voting. I understand how this works, but it's still bullshit. But, they can't contain it. I'm sorry if there's progressives listening. And I know that I shouldn't say that because I should be trying to bring people over instead of alienating them in the way that the Democrats alienate, Trump supporters and anybody it's not progressive, I guess. But it's like, you need to get over this. I know everything. I'm so smart. Anybody who isn't saying exactly what I'm saying is stupid and ignorant, and I need to educate them. Like, do you really think that I'm talking and writing about Canadian politics to this extent, and I'm Canadian, and I'm 45 years old, and I just don't understand. I don't understand how the system works. Like, get over yourself. And most of them are young, but I'm sure some of them are my age. Anyway, okay, so what happened was in January, with this tariff threat coming, Trudeau knew that Trump was saying that he was going to impose these tariffs if he didn't deal with the border, which is not an insignificant issue. Like, if the border in Canada isn't secure, that impacts the U.S. negatively, obviously. So that's not nothing. And, I'm sure Trump has other things up his sleeve that I wish he would explain to all of us. But I assume that part of this is, making a good economic deal for America. But Trudeau knew this was coming and didn't deal with it on purpose because he wanted to use it to his political advantage. So in January, just before Trump's inauguration, when he was going to impose these tariffs, like, this is all very convenient, right? Like, the timing makes things very obvious if you pay attention at all. And if you're not like, we trust what the CBC told us or what the government tells us. He freezes Parliament, so he prorogues Parliament for 2.5 months, announces that he's intending to resign. He didn't announce his resignation. He said, he intends to resign when they've chosen a new leader in a democratic process. And then shuts down Parliament so nobody can do anything about anything. And then almost immediately it becomes obvious that they're choosing this guy, Mark Carney, as the new leader of the Liberal Party. Nobody's ever heard of him. Like, unless you're super deep into, I don't know, economics, like, because he's a banker. Like, he headed up the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. He's never been in politics before. He's never been elected to anything. He's not a politician. They selected this guy. I think he was like maybe the financial advisor or something to Trudeau for some time. He's an insider, but he's not an elected official and never has been. So almost immediately he starts doing these interviews as a Canadian official, which he was not, and speaking, like, putting out these statements on Twitter as though he was the PM, and we're like, wait a minute, like, who are you? Like, Justin Trudeau is still technically the prime minister. So of course the writing was on the wall, and then the Liberal Party had their leadership race, which was not a leadership race. They selected Mark Carney as the leader. They're supposed to do this in a democratic fashion, similar to the way the Democratic Party or whatever, the Republican Party does it in the US, where members of the party are allowed to vote for the new leader. Mm-hmm. So 400,000 people had registered to vote as members of the Liberal Party. Somehow only 120,000 votes were registered, and in every single district, Mark Carney won almost the literal exact same amount of votes, which makes no sense. Like, even in Chrystia Freeland's hometown district, she lost to Mark Carney by this, he got like 89, 88, maybe 90 votes in every single district. And, the other candidates would get like 20 or something like that. Like, it's just BS. Like, it makes zero sense at all. There was never a competition. Nobody even behaved as though they were engaged in a competition. They just decided this is what was happening, and everybody went along. And I think they probably just passed on these numbers that are not real numbers. It's just not possible. So, he wasn't elected in that sense either. Again, people on Instagram keep telling me, oh, well, you don't vote for the prime minister. And it's like, no, you don't vote for the prime minister. But they just plucked this guy out of nowhere and made him the prime minister of Canada with zero democratic process at all. So whether or not this is okay, you can do it this way. It's not normal for a leader to be selected or whatever without having ever held a seat in parliament before. Like, yeah, you can do it, but it's not normal and it's not good to have somebody who's never been elected for anything ever in Canada to suddenly be the prime minister of Canada. That's not democratic. But yeah, and even so now what'll happen is they'll go into an election at some point whenever the Liberals might announce a snap election if they decide that would be beneficial to them. They've gone up in the polls quite a bit according to the media. Who knows what that really means, but they have regained a lot of support that they lost because of this. We're patriotic, we're fighting back, Trump is attacking us, yada, 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 BS that they invented. They could have avoided this as far as I'm concerned. And the retaliatory tariffs mean that they're in this manufactured war that Canada is going to lose no matter what. We don't have a powerful economy as compared to the US. There's nothing we can do. We have to work with Trump. So sit down at the table, figure out a deal, kind of, do what he wants or work something out. But retaliating isn't going to work. It's obviously not working. Doug Ford tried to retaliate with 25% tariffs on electricity going to the US, and immediately Trump was like, okay, cool, we're ending your automotive industry then through like tariffs on steel and aluminum and yada, yada, yada. You just can't, like, you're not going to win. So it's all, we're playing tough, but you're not tough. Like, Trump isn't going to let this go. That's just not who he is. So either the Liberals will call an election soon if they think that's beneficial to them, or, at the latest, technically it should happen in the fall. It has to happen in October, I think. But, it's all really shady and dishonest and manipulative. They're manipulating the public with all of this rhetoric and all these games that have a negative impact on the Canadian economy. Canada imposing tariffs on the US is going to, that cost is going to be shouldered by the Canadian consumer at the end of the day, and Americans will barely notice. It's really stupid and maddening to watch. And even Poilievre is sort of, is sort of, repeating the Liberal mantras when I sort of want something different from him, and being like, we should retaliate, and like, we need to fight back. Canada is strong, and we don't take things lying down. It's like, well, you're going to have to take things lying down.
I know.
Like, what are you going to do?
I have this very weird reaction when Canada's posturing to the US, where I'm like, literally, like, we could completely take over Canada in a weekend if we wanted to. It brings up this weird American reaction in me that I'm not necessarily proud of, but Canada should not be posturing posturing and being warlike to the U.S. It's insane. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with all of this, but it all seems like just political to gin up more support for the Liberal Party in Canada. It seems like it's fodder for the progressives here who view themselves as aligned with Canadians because they think your healthcare system is so much more functional than ours, and life is so much more egalitarian there, and they view it as the socialist paradise they want to turn the United States into, right? I think part of it is that.
And just TDS, like they're going to hate anything Trump does. So, and yeah, they pretend that Canada is some kind of utopia. I mean, they should all move to Canada, then maybe everybody would be happy. But, yeah, so it's like, oh, we're poor Canada under attack by mean Trump. And it's like, I don't know, what do you think a leader is supposed to be? Nice to everybody? Like, he's looking out for his country and his interests, and he's a strong leader. And I guess you guys aren't used to seeing that, but I mean, it's not a bad thing, and people don't play nice in politics, and
no,
that's just how it goes. And that's, how it has to be. You can't just as far as he's concerned, I think he feels like Canada's been taking advantage of the US for a long time. So anyways, Pretty Weird Duck in the live chat says, I heard Trudeau wants to call an election March 16, 17 this year. Well, it won't be Trudeau. It would be Carney now. But I also, hey, no barking. Sorry. I also heard that the Liberal Party might call a snap election even as early as this week. So that's possible, but nobody knows for sure. But yeah, they could just decide that it was like a politically convenient time for them to do that while they're in this manufactured war, this dire situation, this emergency. And, it's going to be really hard, dark days coming. Like it's the same, it's wartime talk, it's COVID talk, and that makes people afraid and makes people, that's a good way to gain support as a politician, right? Like wartime leaders usually do pretty well popularity wise.
And it's just a trade war, or are they recruiting for the military as well?
No, it's just a trade war. That's what they mean by war and dire situation. They, they're prepping Canadian, they're fear mongering. If they do continue with these retaliatory tariffs, then they will really screw the Canadian economy, and people will really be in big trouble. But that could just be all bravado and talk so that they can win an election, right? Which is why now would maybe be a good time for them to call an election. But we'll see. And when they do, hopefully you will be able to vote for me if you're in Vancouver East.
Yay.
But I'll confirm that when I'm ready to confirm that. But if anybody's watching and they're in Vancouver East, let me know, please. The Vancouver East riding in BC. Okay, so I think I've kind of tried to cover what's going on in Canada. If something's confusing, please tell me in the live chat, because I know that it's sort of complicated and confusing.
It's confusing? Canadian politics. It's I just don't understand, but I understand more now than I did before, but the whole system doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I know. I find it really confusing also. Like it is really, really confusing. It's not just you. It's also Canadians who are confused by the system as well. But essentially we have a system where we divide up areas into ridings, electoral districts. You vote within your riding based on where you live, and whoever gets the most votes in that riding becomes the member of parliament for that riding, and they represent you in your area in parliament. Whoever wins the most ridings across Canada, that party becomes the party leader. So whoever's the leader of that party becomes PM. Basically.
How can the prime minister just shut down parliament?
Well, he just asked the governor general to do it, and then usually the governor general does what the PM asks them to.
That's crazy.
I know, it is crazy. And it's people keep telling me this isn't the first time it's happened, and it's like, yeah, this has happened before, and I think it was controversial in the other times it happened. But this was a really long proroguing of parliament. Like it's 2.5, like it's almost 3 months that he froze Parliament. Like, it's one thing to freeze Parliament for a couple of weeks because, I don't know, there's something crazy going on and you need to deal with it or something. But just because you want to stall so you can gin up this fake emergency to regain power and pick a new leader and he did this because he knew that a vote of no confidence was coming. So they were going to, he was going to be forced to resign, which would have put him immediately into an election. So that's why he prorogued Parliament, to stall all this so that he wouldn't be forced out, so that an election wouldn't call before they were ready to create this, fake panic and create all this like, play patriotism, play Team Canada, and install their new leader. So it's all anti-democratic. So everybody on Instagram can keep telling me that I'm so stupid and I don't understand what's going on, and it's fine and this can happen. And I'm like, yeah, it can happen. It's still gross and sketchy BS, and sorry that you're not paying attention or you don't care. Because you're like, it's the Canadian government. They would never screw me, even though they just screwed you for the past 5 years. But okay.
Totally. When they must be on my side if they're appointing a banker to be the prime minister. Bankers are always men of the people.
Like, I think this guy is like a freaking billionaire or something. Like, he's very wealthy. He's an elite banker globalist.
They don't let they don't let the proletariat run the Bank of England. So I'm sure he's total ruling class representative. Anyway, okay, so that's
advice time. Yeah, so that's what's happening. I don't think I've forgotten anything too major. I think I tried to get it all pretty quickly. Okay, so yes, today is our advice episode. We had lots of good questions. I think most of them were for Mary Lou. And this first question is actually a good one that I could respond to if I wanted to, but I don't support the premise. This is from Sabrina. So she says, you'll see why in a minute.
All right.
Here's a good one. How do I change my sleep schedule? I've been wanting to be a morning person for years, and I just feel like I want to puke if I wake up before 8 a.m. Like, literally nauseous when I wake up. Haha. I recognize the hardest part is just shifting my schedule earlier, mostly due to being a waitress since I was 12, part of the family business. I'd love to have dinner by 7 p.m., but I don't usually eat until 10. You can imagine the rest of the schedule. And I just want to say that, yes, I can imagine the rest of the schedule because that is also my schedule. And this is something like all of the morning people who keep trying to force everybody else to be a morning person, they don't understand what it feels like for a not morning person to wake up in the morning. Because I always feel nauseous if I have to wake up early in the morning. I can't eat. If I try to eat, I'll literally throw up and have thrown up. If I try to eat food at 7 a.m., I feel like crap. I feel like crap all day long, and my brain doesn't function properly. So I can't really be productive in the way that I need to be for my work. I mean, sure, if I was just going through the motions, pushing papers around or something, fine. But if you're trying to form thoughts and ideas and sentences and words, then, I can't do that kind of thing if I'm tired. And, I don't feel like working out. I feel like eating badly, blah, 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 blah. And I've never been able to shift my schedule either. I don't want to because I feel good the way that I am. I mean, maybe I'd like to get up a little earlier than I do now, but also, whatever. So I don't know. People probably notice like the hours that I'm tweeting at, and that's not because I'm drunk. It's because I'm up working still. Like, I usually work lately. It's gotten even like I'm working until probably 2 a.m. and then I'll go and like watch a show and I'll be in bed at like 4 a.m. Wow. So yeah. But Sabrina does want to become a morning person. And I know that there are ways to do that. I know some tips, but you probably have more tips than I do because you are a morning person and a healthcare practitioner.
I was not always a morning person. I used to like to sleep until 11 or 12 and stay up late. So, okay, first ask yourself why you want to change and how motivated you are. Because if you really are naturally more nocturnal you're going to have to push against your own constitution to do this and figure out how motivated you are. And if you really are motivated to do this, you want to think of the people who are like non-movers who become exercisers, right? And those people say for the rest of their life they hate exercising, but they like how they feel when they are exercising. So you got to push through that constitutional resistance.
After, I don't enjoy it during, but you feel great after. Feels great when you're done. But I hate working out and I hate exercising and I never want to go. And while I'm there, I'm not enjoying it. But after, you feel really good.
Right. So hopefully Sabrina will feel really good once she's a morning person and has joined the ranks of the morning people. So the first thing you do is you just have to make yourself start getting up. You have to change your schedule. And even if you stayed up late, you have to commit to getting up in the morning and not taking a nap during the day and then going to bed earlier than you want to. So it really is that simple and that difficult. You just have to do that over and over and over again. And for most people, it's going to take about 6 weeks to really have that feel like they're not fighting the tide. So figure out what time you want to wake up. Do you want to wake up at 6? Make yourself get out of bed at 6. If you don't feel like eating, that's fine. Lots of people don't eat breakfast. But if you're nauseous, that's probably from late night eating. That's like, it's probably your blood sugar fluctuations are happening where you metabolized all that food at night while you were sleeping. And then you're in between like a low blood sugar and a glycogen dump from your liver, where the liver often in the middle of the night dumps a bunch of sugar to keep us from having hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. So you're gonna have to push through that too and figure out, maybe you need like a tiny bit of honey. Maybe you need just like a little bit of juice, something that nausea is probably low blood sugar. So pushing through that, make yourself wake up, do not take a nap, and then go to bed. I was about to say a reasonable hour, but that sounds so moralistic, especially when I'm talking to you, Meghan. So
well, you have to, because otherwise you'll screw it all up. Because I can't become a morning person because I like to go out late, or I like to stay up late in general. But it's like if I'm ever managed to shift my schedule a bit, so that say I was getting up at like 10 a.m. and going to bed at midnight instead of 12 to 4 a.m. or whatever it's turned into, then the second I went out late and then I was tired the next morning, I'd sleep in and it just all goes back into the cycle.
Yeah, you can't. She's not an alcohol person. Hopefully she's not a late night party person. So 10 o'clock, you want to be sleeping by 10 o'clock, because most people really do need about 8 hours of sleep to feel optimal. So get yourself in bed, get yourself winding down by 9:30, 9:45, and then aiming to fall asleep. And if your rhythms are all off, because often that night owl will kick in even though your body's so tired, you drink some chamomile tea, or you have some passion flower, you make just make some sleepy tea for yourself, and your goal is to be asleep by 10, and then make yourself get up at 6 in the morning the next day, or whatever your time is. If it's 7, whatever it is, but make yourself get up at that time. It'll take about 6 weeks, but you can turn into somebody who can be a morning person.
This is great advice, of course, Mary Lou. I have some additions. I mean, it's only a theory. I can't prove it, of course. I haven't practiced this, but I do know that magnesium magnesium bisglycinate helps a lot with sleep. Like I take that every night and it helps. I mean, I take it late because I'm not trying to go to bed early, but it does help me get sleepy and sleep, I think. I'll post a link to the one that I have because it's a good quality one, I believe. Also, exercising helps a lot with getting a good sleep and being tired. So I feel like people who are trying to go to bed early should try really hard to get some, like, go work out, like pretty hard. I mean, like more than going for a walk or something like that, 3 or 4 days a week if you can manage it. Obviously more is great, but I can't, so I can't recommend that. But nor do I wish to be perfectly honest. I don't want to spend that much time exercising because it's not my favorite thing to do.
It. Yeah.
And I'm busy with work, right? Like I don't always have time to do that. But if you do, great. You're also supposed to get morning light. Like if you're trying to shift your circadian rhythm, you're supposed to go outside in the sun for a bit in the morning, and that supposedly helps, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Right around sunrise is a great time for that, yeah.
I think before 10 is good too.
Yeah, okay, before 10. Yeah. But you can do it. You just have to do it, and you can't take days off. You can't. You have to do it every day of the week. You're a morning person now. You're not the kind of person who stays up late at night and then sleeps in, if that's who you want to be.
Yeah, I think I've just really given up on ever having like a normal schedule. Just
because you're neurodivergent.
Yeah, and I think divergent in a psychological sense too, maybe. Abby said, I think in response to getting light at sunrise, LOL, that's like a little bit after I fall asleep.
Which is fine if that works for you. But the question was, this person legitimately wants to turn into a morning person. Yeah, not everyone has to be.
No, and I think it is good for a lot of people, and a lot of people want to be able to do, like in some ways it's like, yes, I would like to be able to experience mornings sometimes. That seems nice, but not at the risk of my whole schedule. I think I'm going to be in charge of running a local karaoke night here on Fridays, and those tend to go like very insane hours. So I've got to be well slept and prepped. There was for a very long time here, my favorite night was Thursday night, because that would be, I actually mentioned this on Rogan. I remember like the one person who got a shout out in Sayulita was my friend Zach at the time, who was running the karaoke night every Thursday night. And it would go till like 6 a.m. And it was fun. I mean, in general, because it was karaoke and it's sort of like our local little sports dive bar. And because everybody would come, all of your friends would be there. And then the bar closed, and now the bar has reopened under a new name, but we all just call it New Coco's because this is how our little brains work here. Yeah, we can't adjust to a new name. We're like, oh, it's Coco's, but it's the New Coco's. So the guys who are working there are like, Meghan, can you run our karaoke? And I was like, this is like a big responsibility for me, but I think I might do it with a friend, and we'll co-host. So if anybody's in Sayulita and is looking for karaoke, I think we're going to start doing that on Friday nights. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exciting. The idea of committing to something every week feels like a lot to me, which I think explains why I don't have children. It's like, what if I don't want to one week? Right. Okay, let's move on to another question. And Ardell did a super chat. Thank you. But the super chat was, field a question from someone in the chat, time permitting, of course. I enjoy and appreciate the content and chat here. Thank you, Ardell. And thank you for always being here. I think he's here. I'm assuming that Ardell is a man. Did I get that wrong, though? I hope I didn't misgender him. But if somebody has a question and they want to use Ardell's super chat, I guess put it in the live chat and hopefully I'll see it. And if I don't, then maybe Ardell will see it and they can let us know, because I can't keep track of everything that's happening in the regular live chat. Anyway, okay, next question. This is from Gilgamesh. How do we fix marriage, or call it invested, committed relationships? How can we as a society reverse men and women checking out of dating, checking out of marriage, checking out of parenthood?
Oh, do you have an answer?
Well, I know what other people would say, but I don't think that I'm good at not checking out of relationships, which doesn't mean like I don't call it quits technically early. Like I'll stay in the relationship and stay committed to the relationship, but I think in terms of my ability to get along with the other person, I'll call it quits if I don't like what's happening. Like if I'm not happy, if I'm not feeling heard, if I'm not feeling seen, if I'm not feeling understood. I know you're not supposed to feel all these things in a marriage, but this is what I want to feel. Otherwise, I just sort of feel like I can't stand it. Like I just don't think I'm the kind of person, I can't handle being in a relationship with somebody and I feel like I'm not being truly understood to the depths of my soul. So that's probably why I'm not in a marriage. But you know, if that's happening, yeah, or if I feel like the communication isn't happening in the way that I want it to or makes me feel comfortable, if I feel disrespected or like emotionally or verbally or physically abused, obviously, like it's like I shut down, I think. And so my willingness or ability to like get along or compromise just ends. Like I lose patience. So I don't think I have a good answer for that question. I mean, I think probably people need to, I don't know, I think this sounds bad to say, but I think people probably need to lower their expectations or at least change their expectations in terms of what they expect from a marriage because there has been this shift towards, you know, your partner being everything. And I think that's totally unrealistic. And, you know, like I think, you know, your partner isn't going to be like your best friend and your soulmate and your everything and you guys are going to, you know, want all the same things all the time and if you don't, you need to end it. I mean, I think that marriages are primarily about kids and family. I mean, hopefully they're also about love, but I guess I don't think people think about that anymore. So I think that's a big part of the reason why people get divorced and why marriages don't last. And I don't personally necessarily think that's a bad thing because I sort of am like, it's your life. Like, why would you want to be unhappy? I don't want to waste my life being miserable with somebody who I feel like kind of oppressed or suppressed by. You know, I want to live my life to the fullest because one day I'm going to die. So I don't know. Like I understand why people are worried about marriages and relationships because of the impact on reproduction and family. And I don't think that that's something to be downplayed at all. But I also think staying in a marriage isn't necessarily that important. Like if you're miserable or obviously if the guy's abusive or cheating or whatever, which a lot of men do, sorry.
Yeah, well, and women as well. I mean, there's so many people who just can't have functional long-term relationships. I think the question was more like societally. I read an undertone of how do we make long-term marriage the norm again? How do we fix that institution so it actually is a cultural institution again? Do you think I'm reading into that correctly?
I think you're right. Yeah.
And I think one thing I've learned more and more, and then COVID and the trans thing like blew the lid off of it for me too, is people do what's cool. People will do what's sold to them as the cool thing to do. So you have a lot of pop culture imagery and elevation of happy long-term married couples who adore each other and have a great time together. And you make that the imagery that people aspire to. So I think that, you know, culturally, we need to make marriage cool again, you know, make marriage the norm again. If we want that, I know that there's an argument against that. Personally, the older I get, the more I think it does benefit children to live with the two people who created them, who love each other, and to just have one home and not to have to go back and forth between multiple homes. My inner 25-year-old doesn't like me saying that. I feel that's so heteronormative, but human reproduction is heteronormative. And of all the things that people have worked out, romantic love is a good negotiation between the sexes of it's not better than some guy, you know, owning you and using you as a breeding bot. It's a lot better than arranged marriage. I think that's really cool to bring back chivalry and wooing and romance. You know, bringing back romance. I think it's going to be really hard to. I think it's hard to resurrect that. But if Hollywood and the culture makers decided to make it cool again, it'd be cool again pretty quickly. And then on an individual level, I just always tell people the advice my dad gave me, which is love is not something you fall into. Love is not a feeling. Love is a behavior. And if you want lifelong love with somebody, the two of you need to act in a loving way to each other every day when you're together. And don't be mean to each other. Don't be jerks to each other. Don't cut each other down. Like really, treat your partner as you would like to be treated, and really love each other in the sense of that being a behavior. Don't control each other. And my husband and I don't, we're not into rules or anything, but one thing is like, we don't tell each other what to do. It's just like, we don't try to control each other. It's because I think part of that, most of that's me. I think Phil might have an easier time with being told what to do than I do, but he's, it's kind of his ethos in this life is not to tell anybody else what to do. So don't try to control each other. Be very nice to each other. Be very kind to each other. Everyone always says compromise, but I don't know. In my marriage, I can't think of many things we've had to compromise on, mainly because we usually agree on the big things. Like I haven't, but I guess for many people, they have to learn to compromise. And that's something I don't really personally understand. I know I don't understand it in a marriage. I don't really know what that means, but yeah, be very, very nice to each other.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you are in a good relationship with a good person, and that helps a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I just feel like I've seen and been modeled so many awful relationships and toxic relationships where the people are mean to each other and there is a lot of compromise, and often it's one person who's compromising on everything because, they want to get along and they don't want the relationship to end. And if one person is not willing to compromise and you want to stay together, then the other person does have to compromise. I think, yeah, I feel like so many relationships, I just see people not really being very happy and not really being able to communicate open and honestly with one another, and just like these deep, long-standing resentments. Or yeah, I think people discount how common abuse is in relationships sometimes, and then and it gets confused when people are like, especially like women, I think, are like, oh, well, I need to be understanding and I need to try to get along and stand this. And maybe I don't understand. He has all this trauma and yada, yada, yada. And then, I need to keep my marriage together for the kids. And I don't think like that's good, but I think, I don't know. I don't have good advice because I don't personally know how to pick a good man, because I'll end up in relationships where I feel like I'm being really nice and open and loving towards somebody and then feel slighted or disrespected or hurt, and then everything is just like, especially now, because I'm just like, I'm not getting fucked over anymore. Like my red flag radar is probably like overly strong, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, I feel
we
like
don't know
I'm
how
like
to fix marriage.
Dark when it comes to relationship.
Yeah,
I'm like, bleh.
I do think culturally, if people want to make marriage the norm again, model healthy, fun, appealing marriages. Make marriage cool again. Ardell does say getting married when you're older makes it much harder. I completely agree with that. I think marriage works better as a startup than a merger. I think, one thing I would say, if like you really want to get married, as soon as you like are married, share finances. Like I think community property is important. Like everything is ours. Otherwise, you're not really married. You're planning for divorce if you're not sharing everything. That's just the truth. You're planning for divorce if you're not sharing everything. And you know what? That's a lot easier to do when you're young and you only have $10. It's like, yeah, it's to both of us. Let's go. Like go blow it somewhere, But I think it's a lot harder to move out of that this is mine, I'm keeping this mentality when you're in your mid-30s and you already have a career and you already have, valuable possessions. So I agree, getting married younger is easier on people.
Yeah, and I feel like you've got a lot less resentments and fears and baggage based on all you've been through and all the other relationships. You're like, I'm not sharing anything because I'm going to get screwed over.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Abby in the live chat sounds a lot like me. She said she doesn't like making compromises, and I'm like, me neither, because but it's because I'm like, well, I'm happy and I like my life, so why would I want to compromise? And she says, I like living alone too much. My husband would need to buy his own place, which is also how I feel. Like, I don't want anybody living in my space. It drives me insane because I wake up and I want to start working, and even if there's somebody there, it's like, get away, go do something, get out of the house, go away, stay away from me. Like, I don't want to be around somebody when I come home or when I wake up either. So yeah, I'm not cut out for marriage. Again, I'm neurodivergent, so, but I think that all of Mary Lou's advice is very good. And the next question is from Russell asks, like, if I happen to be in Sayulita, can I buy you a drink at the bar, walk on the beach, stuff like that? I do not like walking on the beach, and you could maybe buy me a drink at the bar if you're not a weirdo. So let me know, but I'm not promising anything. Sarah Caulfield says, question for Mary Lou. If you were a 20 to 30-year-old woman wanting to become a midwife in today's world, how would you go about it? How do I balance true evidence-based practice and the spirituality of birth in my education as to not become indoctrinated by modern medicine or become so disillusioned and fearful of medicine that I actually become harmful to women? Some context. I think that is a good question, and it's important too. Some context, if it matters. I'm an American nurse living in Australia. I moved to Australia for the lower education costs and the seemingly better scope of practice for midwives in Australia, only to find that Australian midwives are deeply indoctrinated into medicalization and home birth being extremely controlled by the government. Despite how messy midwifery is in America, sometimes I think I should come back for education because there seems to be more choice in how to practice midwifery, at least from state to state. Help. And before we answer that, I just remembered that I forgot to tell everyone who's watching on YouTube to please like and subscribe. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so American midwifery is messy and confusing. It's very American. And I'm assuming the question is, maybe I'm assuming incorrectly. I guess the first thing you want to do is decide what kind of midwife you want to be. If you want to be a nurse midwife who works in the hospital, that's a pretty easy assembly line path. You get a nursing degree, you apply to grad school, you get into a nurse midwifery program. You will be getting trained in hospital birth. You will be learning to manage epidurals. You will be learning to practice primarily as a low-tech obstetrician in a hospital system. You should not choose that path if you want to be a home birth midwife or a birth center birth midwife, because it's very hard to unlearn that. And also, you're not learning to do it. You won't be a safe home birth provider because you know nothing about it. All your training's in that context. It's very, very contextually different. But that's a fine path. If a woman wants to be a nurse midwife managing birth in the hospital, there's an easy way to do that. And it's become a graduate educated nurse in one of those programs. If you want to be a home birth midwife, don't become a nurse midwife. My advice at this point would be to train in a state with voluntary licensure. So you're in a place where there's still autonomy around birth. So those states are like Utah, Wisconsin, Oregon has voluntary licensure, Minnesota has voluntary licensure, or a state without licensure. So an illegal state or an illegal state, and you're really going to learn autonomous midwifery in those places. And find, You get your skill set together, make yourself attractive as an apprentice, and find a busy midwife in one of those areas and ask to apprentice with her.
Cool. Excellent. I hope that was helpful, Sarah. Okay. Sabrina had another good question, actually. She says, I just learned my brother proposed to a woman I and the rest of my family don't like. She and I had a big falling out, and my red flag sensors go crazy around her. How do I not destroy my relationship with my brother? I'm terrified to lose him for the rest of my life.
Ooh.
That's a tough one, eh?
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm pretty judgmental. I mean, I don't know if I have good advice about this. I think I wouldn't say anything to the brother because he loves her and he wants to marry her. And I feel like if I said, you know, I don't know if I like this woman or I'm seeing these red flags, then like I don't know if it's my business. It's his choice to be in a relationship with who he wants and to marry who he wants, and that's a pretty sensitive topic that I suspect people would get really defensive about, and then it might cause like a weird rift. And because they're getting married, I feel like he might tell her, and then it causes really big problems because she could cause drama and be like, well, I don't want to hang around with your family because they don't like me. And I've seen this happen with other people before too, and this has caused a big rift that never healed again because the family didn't like the person that the daughter or son was marrying, and then relayed that information to the partner, and the partner never got over it, and then held these resentments for all of time, and things were awkward and weird forever. So like I don't know, it's sort of like, I guess you have to try to get along. Is that true? What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You don't want to get in between. You don't want to ask your brother to choose between you and the woman he wants to marry. He's going to pick the woman he wants to marry. You don't want to cause resentments, like you said. I think you have to kind of suck it up and just really love your brother and realize he's not this woman, and try to have some time with him. This is a hard thing. I love my brother dearly, but we've never really been close since childhood. And I think if you're in the same town and you're used to hanging out with your brother and you spend a lot of time with your brother, this is going to be a really difficult situation. And now this woman is now a part of your family. I think it's best to try to be welcoming to her and try to be kind to her, while also keeping your guard up and really being there if it falls apart, like planning to be there for your brother, but don't sabotage their relationship.
Yeah, I don't think you want to get in between the relationship, and then that risks her getting in between your relationship with your brother. If she wants to do that because she's toxic or whatever. But, I mean, I might feel that way if I married somebody and their whole family didn't like me and said so, and tried to convince him not to marry me. I'd be like, I'm not hanging out with these people. Screw them. Sabrina says, progress report. She still wants a groveling apology where she claims no responsibility after I lovingly reached out saying I would love to heal this and truly celebrate with you in this very happy time. Okay, I think we missed something in the middle there though, because what does she want an apology for? Like, did you tell her that you didn't like her? Did somebody tell her that? Please fill us in.
I think you need to just apologize to her. Just suck it up and just do an etiquette-based apology. You don't have to, have your fingers crossed behind your back, or you don't have to mean it, but for the sake of the peace of the family, you're just going to have to do that. Families are messy.
Yeah, I think Mary Lou's right. I think you just need to be polite and apologize, and it doesn't matter if you mean it or not. Just try to, make her happy enough so that the family can be together and have good relationships with one another. And, probably he'll figure out eventually that she sucks if she sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't really stop people from being in relationships with people that they want to be with, and trying to do that usually results in you being rejected from the relationship. You kind of have to learn these things on your own. If people always get angry when, for example, like, if I or somebody else goes into a relationship with a guy and one of your friends maybe says, I don't like this guy. I don't think that he's a good guy. He seems like a dick, or he seems like he's abusive even, or he seems something or other. Usually what happens is the woman still chooses to go into the relationship because they're in love or whatever. And eventually maybe they find out this is true and leaves. And, the response shouldn't be, oh, I told you so, or like, I warned you, you shouldn't have listened to me. That's just not how things work. Unfortunately, you learn about red flags and narcissism and red flags for like abuse and abusive men through experiencing, and it's very hard for you to kind of convey that information to other people, which is not to say that I don't think it's extremely important for older women and for matriarchs and mothers and grandmothers to pass on this information to their daughters. Of course they should. But when it's a friend saying to a friend, I don't think you should be with this guy, and then feeling mad that they didn't listen to your advice, I think that's really kind of juvenile and not very wise in terms of how people function. I mean, I think there's ways to say, oh, like, I noticed this thing and it made me feel uncomfortable, and maybe that'll stick in their brains and the other person will notice if it happens again. But telling somebody not to be with somebody else, I don't think is going to work ever.
I think the best thing is to be diplomatic and to be gracious and have good etiquette, and to try to phrase things in, instead of like, she's a narcissist or whatever you might want to say, we have a personality conflict. We instead of don't make it a fight, and if they do go on to have children, if you've set yourself up as an enemy, if you're creating this fight between you, the kids are going to pick up on that, and that affects their self-concept. Also, it's going to alienate you from your nieces and nephews. Because children's ultimate allegiance is always going to be to their mom. It's not going to be to their aunt.
Yeah, for sure. Sabrina says, to answer my question about what happened, she says, we had a falling out over a year ago. She definitely seems like she's using him, but of course I would never say that to him. What did you have a falling out over? Yeah, anyway. I agree with Mary Lou's advice. I think you just need to get along for the sake of the family and not cause rifts or, try to cause rifts between your brother and the wife and the future kids. So, yeah, it's unfortunate when somebody marries somebody that you hate, and then you have to be around them all the time. It's very frustrating. Okay. If anybody, I don't know, Ardell, did you see any questions from anyone in the live chat that you want us to address? I have not seen any. If you have, please let me know. If anybody in the chat has a last minute question, speak now or forever hold your peace, because otherwise we'll just do one more question and then that will be it, because it's a long day for Mary Lou now, thanks to daylight savings.
I know.
Okay. Ardell says, Mary Lou, any thoughts, and this is the last one from the live chat, any thoughts on herbal or natural remedies for PTSD?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are lots of nervines that can help calm the nervous system. First, I would say stay away from cannabis. I don't think that's actually helping. And I say that as a former cannabis lover and somebody who fought for legalization. I think it's actually making people get stuck in their story more than it's healing it. And I think the second piece of advice I would say is hold a space for healing and don't take on PTSD as an identity or a lifelong problem. Like, try to reframe what you're dealing with and say, I'm finding peace. I'm healing. I'm going to retrain my nervous system not to be so overreactive. I'm having grace with myself, understanding that my nervous system's overreactive because of what I've been through, but that doesn't have to be my reality forever. I think the first step to healing from this culture of psychiatric diagnoses is to let go of the diagnoses and to reframe what you're experiencing. And then to heal your nervous system, passion flower is really lovely. That's a really nice one for sleep. It's very relaxing. It'll turn off panic attacks. It'll help you avoid nightmares at night. Just lovely tea to have before bed, or tincture. And you can use it during the day if you're really, really having a lot of anxiety and panic. Motherwort is really nice for bringing a sense of, I can handle whatever happens, a broadening of our neurological capacity, broadening of our emotional capacity. So motherwort as a tincture, that one tastes really bad as a tea. I probably wouldn't do that as a tea. Oats all day long are really nice.
Like oats in tea?
Oat straw, yeah, oat straw or milky oats as a tea would be great. Like a nice infusion of oats is really fortifying to the nervous system. That just makes you feel less shaky. Well, there's so many wonderful nervines. And then all over the world, the artemisias, which are known as like the sage brushes here, like Taos sage or Western sage brushes, those all over the world are used to clear bad vibes, to reset the space, to reset the story. In Chinese medicine, they use the Artemisia species of mugwort as moxibustion, and they say that the Artemisia, the goal of healing with Artemisia is to make it as though the bad thing never happened, to reset you so as though you're no longer feeling the resonance of what harmed you in the past, to heal. You're really healed when you don't tell that story anymore. That story is just not part of your mindset anymore. I think most of us have had those experiences where, like a bad breakup or a big fight with a friend or a bad accident, where we need to tell the story over and over and over again. Like, I need to tell you over, right? You've experienced that, and you're healed when you don't even tell that story anymore, right? Like, It's like, I don't even tell that story anymore. So the Artemisias really help you move and shift and just stop telling that story. So then you don't have a nervous system reaction going on anymore that would even make you think to label yourself as having amorphous, handle that you want to call PTSD. So burning sage, using mugwort oil on your body, sipping mugwort tea, spraying with Artemisia hydrosols. Like, the Artemisias are really, really good. Smelling them, bathing in them, putting the oils on your body.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary Lou. Mm-hmm. And for those who are interested in Mary Lou's upcoming 16-week course on herbal medicine, which is a very good deal at $450 if you enroll before April 15th. I put a link in the live chat, or just go to enchantedfamilymedicine.com. Okay, we have one more question. This was, I believe, from Substack, from Lou, who says, I'd love to hear Mary Lou talk about the safety. I'm curious about this also. The safety of estrogen and other hormones to relieve hot flashes and other symptoms of menopause. Do they increase cancer risk? Can testosterone also help with these? Like bioidentical hormones is like a big thing for women nowadays who are in perimenopause or going into perimenopause or going into menopause, as a way to alleviate all those bad symptoms, including just kind of generally getting old, and things like testosterone can help with workouts and libido and losing weight a little bit. And I've been taking a bit of that in recent months, just to be transparent. I'm not on estrogen because I'm still producing eggs, so I don't need it. But things like, supposedly, this is what I'm told by people who like this kind of thing, is that things like progesterone can help with, I think you end up I think a lot of women who go through perimenopause or menopause have a really hard time sleeping. So I'm told that progesterone can help with that. I don't know if any of this is true or not. I do know that for me personally, I think testosterone has been helpful in certain regards and then unhelpful in other regards. For example, if you don't want to have a libido, because then you end up trying to sleep with men that you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I think we don't really have any good data on what the testosterone's doing. So I'm skeptical. Like, I'm old enough to have seen the pendulum swing really far on hormone replacement therapy. When I first was studying as a midwife in the early 90s, HRT, or hormone replacement therapy, was very, very hot. Like, it was like, put all the women on Premarin. Everybody needs to take progesterone. This is really important to give, to give all the women a chance to not have the decrepitude of aging, ravish their bodies. And then by the time I was in grad school, so like 2010, so that was the 90s, really big HRT time. And then in the 2010 to like 2015, maybe a little longer than that, the Women's Health Initiative study came out, and it was a really big study. And at the time, we were all told, this is such a good study. It's longitudinal. It has so many participants. And here's what it showed. HRT is really bad for women. It increases stroke risk. It increases liver problems. It increases dementia risk.
Are we talking specifically about estrogen or about all of it?
Estrogen and progesterone. Okay. The bioidentical stuff, we have literally no data. So that's not like, bioidentical is a made up word by the compounding pharmacy industry, like little pharma. That's like little pharma, but we don't really have any study on that. But it's not really bioidentical. That's just a marketing term. So this was on estrogen, progesterone, HRT, and it said it massively increases breast cancer risk, blood clot risk. If you're going to put women on it, get them off within 5 years. It's malpractice to leave women on it longer. So when I was trained in grad school, it was a very anti-HRT time, and we were told to use, use other substances to help with the symptoms of early menopause. Now everyone's on drugs. We've got the trans industry thing going on, really pushing that testosterone's like, there's nothing wrong giving everybody hormones. And from my perspective, what I'm seeing is, and I'm not going to judge, and everybody's got to make their choice, but I think we should start calling HRT menopause blockers, because we are stopping a developmental phase of life.
Well, I think that's true. And I think that women would actually be okay with calling it that, because I think a lot of women who are on these hormones do want to not go through menopause. And,
right. It's like Peter Pan. Like, I'm going to be young forever. I'm going to be young forever. So we're losing the mantle of eldership.
I mean, I would like to be young forever, not go through menopause. I'll be honest. I don't feel attacked, though. Don't worry. I'm glad for this information.
Yeah. But I also think that most 11-year-old girls would prefer not to go through puberty. And obviously in the United States, the vast majority of women prefer not to go through labor. Like, they want their epidural in the parking lot before labor starts, so we avoid rites of passage. We avoid, humans avoid change. We don't like change. We avoid aging and discomfort and natural rites of passage. So my perspective, and this is clearly, I'm an outlier on this, is I'm into all the embodiment. I'm into the experience, and I'm trying to be really interested in what's happening. My parents died relatively young, so I'm pretty psyched to get old. Like, I want to be really old. I want to be like in my late 90s someday. And I'm not sure the evidence is solid that taking these medications makes me more likely to get there. I also want to live in a world where I see female eldership, and I see silver hair, and I see, kind of the like tapping out of sexy that is supposed to happen in our species, right? Like, I want to see women embracing that. That's why I like going to the Wise Woman Herb conferences, where there are a lot of like crones there. There's a lot of elevation of elder women there who've lived really cool lives. And so for me, I'm not normal. And I think I think that it can be really cool to just experience what's happening. Hot flashes are a message from your body. For me, they're always about sugar, alcohol, too much news, not enough exercise. Like there's always a reason I'm hot flashing. And if I turn that symptom off with hormones, I'm not going to get that feedback. And I'm probably going to just keep eating sugar and drinking alcohol and not exercising and doing the things that undrugged make me hot flash all night, So to me, it's been really valuable feedback where if I'm really taking good care of myself, I don't have any hot flashes. If I'm not taking care of myself, that's happening. Vaginal dryness. I mean, you've got to stay sexually active. Like that's the thing, like really use it or lose it. If a woman has been, on a sexual hiatus, even with herself, like no masturbation, like the vagina shrivels up pretty quickly in menopause. But if you stay sexually active, that doesn't happen, even if that's with yourself. But if a woman has like already experienced that atrophy, that's a place estrogen can really help, like get the store back open for business, that can be helpful.
What does progesterone do? Like, what's the purpose of progesterone?
So progesterone means progestation. So it supports pregnancy. Progesterone is the PMS hormone. It's the hormone of the second half of the menstrual cycle. So so it's the hormone of, some women feel really mellow and calm on progesterone. Other women feel like they want to eat all the time and they're moody and they feel like they're PMSing all the time. Progesterone is, it affects everybody differently. Women feel differently during their cycles, but how you feel like the week before your period is how you feel on progesterone generally, because that's the dominant hormone then.
So why would they give progesterone to women who were in perimenopause or entering perimenopause if it wasn't going to make you feel better?
Well, I think the placebo effect is enormous. I think that like giving women anything makes them feel better. The body can convert any of the sex hormones into the other sex hormones. So if you give women a bunch of progesterone, often she'll break it down and her liver will make a little more estrogen. Her body will make a little more estrogen out of it. Progesterone often makes women sleep better. A lot of women gain weight on it. Some women get headaches on it. Estrogen is more like the love bomb. Like estrogen is, I want to take care of everybody. I'm like feeling sexy. I want to interact. Like that's the more of a mothering hormone, more of the first half of your cycle, ovulation. How you feel during that time is how you feel on a lot of estrogen. So
I don't think I would need or want either of those things.
You probably don't.
Well, I feel like my sleep is okay and my socializing is fine. I mean, I'm mostly, I'm looking for things that, I don't want to get old or age. So it's that kind of thing. And, you are losing it's muscle mass as you get older and your workouts have become a lot less productive. So that was a big part of the reason that I said okay about to the testosterone that was recommended to me. Wasn't necessarily because I was interested in like upping my libido, although that is a side effect, which would probably be good if you were in a relationship with somebody, but less so if you're not. But yeah, like I think it has helped with workouts and things like that. I don't know if there's harmful side effects. I haven't experienced any in any case.
I mean, testosterone's like speed to, it makes you feel like a teenage boy. It is going to make you build muscle and feel like more energy.
I identify as a teenage boy.
We don't really know how testosterone affects the female body. Women aren't naturally supposed to have a lot of testosterone. We don't have a lot of testosterone. We do know it'll help, it will make you have more muscle mass. It can cause clitoral hypertrophy. It can cause liver tumors. It can cause, it's an anabolic steroid. So in women, it can cause left-sided.
I mean, that would be if you were taking a ton, like if you're taking a small amount to replace what you've lost because you're aging, I guess is what I was thinking of.
Women don't have a lot of testosterone. Yeah, women just don't have very much testosterone in their body. Like it's, women, I think it was like nanograms per milliliter is how that is measured. And the range for women is like 7 to 40 nanograms per milliliter. where the range for healthy men is 300 to 1200. Like we have very little testosterone. So what I'm seeing is a lot of women come in, get their testosterone tested. They're told, oh, your testosterone is low because it's 15, but that's a normal testosterone. What that provider is actually saying is, you should be more like a man, that's,
or you could be more like a man.
You could be more like a man. People feel better on it, but honestly, like, it's a big experiment and we don't have any data.
Right.
And if people are fine with that, but it really is taking drugs. It's taking drugs, and that's okay. But just people need to know, people need to know that we don't have data. You're participating in an uncontrolled medical experiment. Bioidentical is it's a misnomer. It's not actually bioidentical. It's being made in a lab somewhere. It's just little pharma, not big pharma.
And what about human growth hormone?
Well, that is very much linked to cancer. Like, there are many cancers that are HGH dependent. So that one concerns me even more. Children and adolescents have a ton of that. Men keep producing it like into their mid-20s, but that's a big one right now that they're really, really, really pushing HGH. And that one, that and estrogen absolutely linked to cancers. Like, we know that there are cancers that are HGH dependent.
Right. All righty. Good information. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Those were really good questions. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. We could maybe do it every month or every couple months or something like that. But thanks for tuning in. We will be back again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. CST.
Yeah. No, MST.
And CDT. And MST and no.
I don't know.
I only know that I'm on CST. That's why I said that. But you guys, I don't know what the rest of you are.
What time is it where you are?
It's 8:28.
Right. Okay, we're on the same time right now. Okay.
But you're in mountain.
I'm in mountain daylight time. I don't know.
Yeah. So everyone else has moved to D. So it's like if you're on the East Coast, you're on EDT. If you're on the West Coast, you're on PDT. But I'm still on CST, which really confuses people because they think I'm stupid. So they think that what I actually mean is CDT. And I'm like, nope, I swear to God. So I think now, until we switch back again in the fall, unless maybe we can convince Trump to cancel it, maybe we could.
Like, who is the lobby for this? Why?
I really
are we
don't know.
doing this?
Yeah, who is it that likes this? Like, who? Yeah. Is there somebody who likes this shift?
And why do they have so much power? Anyway,
I don't know. I know it's very strange. Anyway, so next week we'll be here at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. my and Mary Lou's time.
Yay.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And you can find Mary Lou at enchantedfamilymedicine.com. And you can register for her upcoming course over there as well on herbal medicine, and find her on Substack at Mary Lou Singleton, on X at ML_Singleton, and please find me on Substack at www.meganmurphy.ca. If you become a paid subscriber, you get access to all of my articles, and you get early access to all of my podcast interviews, and you get commenting privileges, and you can participate in chats and submit questions to the stream. And it helps to support my work, so I really appreciate that. And I am, of course, on Twitter at Megan E. Murphy. And that's all I can think of. Did I forget anything?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Have a good night, Mary Lou. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, everybody.